So let's talk about it. Brock Purdy, he keeps having phenomenal game after phenomenal game. He's probably going to win the MVP. He almost certainly will win the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
He's the best quarterback in the NFL.
He's playing like it. He leads in passing touchdowns, passer rating, passing touchdowns per interception, passer touchdowns per interception, yards per attempt, yards per completion, wins. I mean, he's winning in every statistical category. He is playing like the best quarterback in the NFL this year. Is he the best quarterback in the NFL? I don't know. Look, when Cap came out and balled out for that year and a half, that 18 months or so when he was the quarterback for the 49ers, I thought Cap was going to be the answer for years to come for the 49ers. When Jimmy came out and balled out 5-0 and the 49ers made him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, I thought he was going to be the real deal and guide us to the promised land. So the only reason why I'm not ready to say Brock Purdy is the best quarterback in the NFL is because I've seen guys like Patrick Mahomes do this for years, win multiple Super Bowls. And I'm not so sure if you didn't put a few of these quarterbacks, these elite quarterbacks like the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sure if you put those guys, Joe Burrow, if you put those guys on the 49ers, that this team would be any worse than they are right now or not better than they are right now. So I'm not going to say Brock Purdy's the best quarterback in the NFL. I need to see him. Look, if Brock Purdy goes out and wins the Super Bowl, like I honestly think they're going to. I hope they're going to, and I think they can. If he goes out and wins a Super Bowl and he comes back next year and performs at the same level he's performing at now, I think I might be ready to have that conversation. But I will say that I think if you're a quarterback in the NFL right now, you want to be playing for this team. You want to be in Brock Purdy's situation with Kyle Shanahan down that plays for you with these weapons to pass to. So it's not a knock on Brock Purdy to also admit that he's in the best situation a quarterback could probably be in the NFL, but he's also executing at the highest level right now too. So it's entirely possible that he becomes the best quarterback in the NFL and he's on the best team in the NFL in the best situation. That's possible. I just need to see it over a longer period of time. But man, if he's not the best quarterback in the NFL, he's top 5, 6, 7 right now, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. And I did not see it coming.
It's hard to say that he's the best quarterback in the NFL because of his numbers when the quarterback with the second best numbers pretty much across the board is Tua, who I think when like Niner fans or non-Dolphin fans look at the Dolphins objectively from afar, you're like, yeah, okay. I mean, Tua's not that great. He's not bad. In fact, he's good. But is he a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? Maybe? Borderline?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's other guys I'd take over Tua. He's on a really good team with a really good coach. And that's why his numbers are so good. I mean, Brock's on a really good team he's on a better team with a just as good of a coach. That doesn't mean he's not good. But if a supporting cast and a really good play caller can make Tua look like that, I mean, Tua would be the MVP this year if Brock Purdy didn't exist. So you got to factor that in a little bit. That being said, he's really, really good. And I think what we didn't see with him, his traits that are elite, his field vision, man. 2 things. Field vision and like, you could call it poise, but I'm going to call it like just calmness.
Yeah.
Almost boredom. I didn't watch Joe Montana. I'm born in 88. So I'm used to Steve Young, who was kind of frenetic. Jeff Garcia, who was extremely frenetic. And I like that style of quarterback. But Brock is much more low-key, like Aaron Rodgers, Joe Montana. I'm not saying he is those quarterbacks, but that's his demeanor. And it's a lot of fun to watch a quarterback who's so unfazed.
I think I could say that I think you can make an argument that Brock Purdy has the best vision and the best poise out of all the quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I think you could say that. Like, you could definitely make an argument for that. He's calm all the time. That's why they call Joe Montana Joe Cool. Same presence. And you see that from Brock Purdy. He can see the field. That's one thing I noticed. Everyone knows I was concerned about his arm strength last year. But one thing I noticed in the preseason last year was that he's a playmaker and he sees the field very well. That you could see almost immediately, which is also strange because he's not the tallest dude. And you think or you hear that you got to be a big guy to be able to see the field well. But it's really his mental, the mental part that Brock Purdy has that you just can't judge coming into the NFL. You can't scout really. It's really hard to tell, and then until they actually play in an NFL game. Brock Purdy might have the best vision in the NFL. He might see the field better than anybody in the NFL. He might have the best poise now that Brady left in the NFL. Those things might be true, man, based on the way he's playing. But I just need to see it out over a longer period of time.
I think he's definitely the most valuable player in the NFL, and I'll say why. I think he's the biggest cheat code in the NFL, and I'll say why. He's really, really good. He plays the most important position, and he makes $900K. I think his salary is, and like, you didn't have to give up barely any draft pick to get him. You didn't have to spend a draft pick. You didn't trade up for him. He's a glorified undrafted free agent, making less than $1 million a year, and he's playing MVP level quarterback for you. That's the biggest cheat code in sports. Yeah. In a salary cap league where good quarterbacks routinely make $35 million, you get a guy who's very good and he's making next to nothing. He's making like the CBA won't allow people to make less than what he's making. That is a cheat code. And yeah, like you could have Patrick Mahomes, but you're paying for Patrick Mahomes. Right. You could have Josh Allen, but you're paying for him. So those teams can never be as good as the Niners as long as the Niners aren't completely incompetent. And they've missed on some huge draft picks, man. They missed on Trey Lance. They gave up. They drafted Trey Lance 3 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
3 times. They missed on Javon Kinlaw to a large degree. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Trey Sermon, but it doesn't matter.
He's the most valuable player. He is the most valuable player in the NFL. The reason why I say that is because not only what you said, he's on the best team in the NFL. If you took him out of it and you put Sam Darnold in, look, the 49ers could win a lot of games with a lot of quarterbacks, but they're not going to win like this. They're not going to give you the confidence going into the playoffs that they can actually win a Super Bowl, right? Like if Sam Darnold was a quarterback, they'd probably win 12, 13 games, 11 games, somewhere in that range with Sam Darnold at quarterback. I think they could with a lot of quarterbacks, but they're not beating them 42-10 or whatever. They're not dominating the way they're dominating to the level where you think, okay, this team can actually win the Super Bowl. That's because of Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is the reason why I'm confident in this team headed into the postseason and thinking that they can win that 6th Lombardi. I think if you take Brock Purdy out of it and you pop Jimmy Garoppolo in there, I don't have that confidence. And that's why I think Brock Purdy deserves the MVP, because they're the best team in the NFL. And he's putting up the best numbers in the NFL, and he's elevating this team. He's not along for the ride like Jimmy. He's actually elevating the players around him. He's executing perfectly, and he would have my vote right now if I'm voting for MVP.
Yeah, I'd have to give it to him too. And I think Cam Newton said, no team is looking for the next Brock Purdy in the top 10. You're looking for a difference maker. But I think it's such an interesting discussion. And Cam even said it, really, there's only 5 difference makers. See, if you're in pursuit of a difference maker and you don't have the number 1 pick in the draft, even if you do, the Panthers took the wrong one. It's so hard, and it's so bad for you really got to be certain you got a difference maker if you're taking a quarterback in the first round. Otherwise, there's no reason to, unless you're absolutely certain, because it's clear college football is producing extremely high-level game managers. Extremely high-level game managers. Guys who've played a lot of football and can play right away and win right away for nothing. That's your best option. So I disagree with Cam on that one. I do think teams are looking for the next Brock Purdy. That's why Jake Browning is starting right now. That's why Nick Mullins is starting right now. I think the rest of the league is getting it. I think they're starting to get it.
The thing is that where Cam Newton's theory is flawed is he's saying a difference maker from an athletic standpoint, from an arm standpoint, from a size and build standpoint. But Brock Purdy is a difference maker, and it's from the mental standpoint, from the brain, from the mind, right? He is adaptable.
I think he means like a guy who can cover up warts, a guy who you take with the first pick, you give a bunch of money, and you say, we're not going to have a complete team, but we're going to have a great quarterback, and he's going to make up for these things. And I think like maybe that's a flawed way of building a team anyway, because these quarterbacks are getting too expensive. And as long as there's a rookie wage scale and you can get quarterbacks making $900K and they're good, it's hard to compete with teams that have that and don't spend on the position. So it seems like we've been talking about this for years. Yeah. As soon as teams figured out and embraced the cheap quarterback and it worked, they're going to have a huge advantage. It's like you have 40, 50 million extra in salary cap, essentially. And look at the Niners. Why are they so much better than the rest of the league? Why are they scoring 35 points every week? Because, man, they got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo and replaced him with Javon Hargrave.
Yeah.
And a better quarterback for free.
one thing where Brock makes up for already, he's already making up for that the team has a weakness is protection. That this offensive line is not doing a great job of protecting Brock Purdy, but his elusiveness in the pocket, his quickness, short area quickness, he's making up for that in evading the pressure and creating off script. I think that goes under appreciated a lot when it comes to Brock Purdy's game. They think he's just, passing to open guys, but he's not doing it all out of the pocket. He's avoiding sacks and pressures. If Jimmy Garoppolo was there, he's taken way more sacks than Brock Purdy has taken this year. And what I like about Brock Purdy's game, and as far as being a playmaker and a difference maker, is the way that he makes a difference is with his mind, and that's more sustainable long term than if you're making a difference with your athleticism purely, right? If it's mental that you're making a difference with, that can be sustained and that can actually improve over time.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is, we're seeing like a reprioritization of the traits that matter at quarterback, because we were calling Brock Purdy a dink and dunk quarterback, but it's a dink and dunk league for a lot of reasons. One, defenses play a lot of too high coverage. They don't want to give up the big play. They force the check down. Two, almost every game, the defensive line has the advantage over the offensive line. The ball has to come out quick. So the league has become very much a league of distributor point guard quarterbacks getting the ball into the hands of playmakers really quickly and letting them take over. Yeah. That's what a lot of the league is. And it's like, that's what defenses are dictating with these too high coverages and phenomenal defensive lines that overwhelm offensive lines that just aren't that good anymore.
Yeah. So like we called Brock Purdy dink and dunk. I think you and I were probably the main two guys doing that. He was. That's the thing that people don't realize.
It works. He has playmakers. You want to get the ball. You want to dink and dunk. Those are explosive plays, and he's accurate. Like it's an effective way of playing football.
But it's not only that. It's last year he was 2 for 6 over 30 yards,
right,
with an interception. This year he's like
now he has a bionic arm.
Yeah, right. So he's even Brock Purdy admitted. They asked him, what's up with this deep ball stuff? Like, is this part of your game? Has it always been part of your game? And he's like, no, I didn't do this in college. And I'm getting used to the offense, and so I'm doing it more now than ever. So me looking at Brock Purdy last year, seeing what he was doing, and assuming that he was dink and dunk and his arm strength was a problem, I don't think was that far off, to be honest with you. But what I was wrong about is his ability to develop it into it. I never thought he was going to develop into the guy he is today, or especially coming off a UCL injury.
But what I'm saying is, like, these highly talented game changer quarterbacks, like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Dak Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, they come into the NFL and they have to learn how to dink and dunk, because you don't have as much time anymore. You don't have the playmakers you had. You don't have the advantages you had in college. All of a sudden, you have to just execute the offense, keep it on time, and don't make it all about you. Don't try to be a hero. You were a hero in college. Don't be a hero anymore. And it's like they have to learn how to do that. And the NFL is not a developmental league. And Brock Purdy already knows how to do it. There's a lot of these quarterbacks coming in the league. Oh, you were watching football yesterday. Bailey Zappi was balling for a while. Nick Mullins a couple of days ago was balling until he couldn't do the quarterback sneak. But that's a different thing. I'm just saying, there's a lot of these quarterbacks who really manage it's like managing the game is a prerequisite. You call someone a game manager, it's like, oh, that's all you can do. But if you can't manage the game, dude, you're not a starting quarterback. And a lot of these guys have to learn. The top 10 picks have to learn how to do it when there are guys taken in day 3 that have been doing it year in and year out for years and years and years and years and years.
Yeah, and there's dink and dunk is, to your point, it's a major part of the game in the NFL right now, and you got to be able to do it. It's only a problem. It's only a problem if that's all you can do. And I was worried last year that that's all Brock is going to be able to do. This year, he's more than shown that that's not all he can do. He can take the top off as well, and that's the difference.
And as we can see too, like if you're that good on dinking and dunking, if you have that many weapons who can take short throws and make them big gains, if your run game is that good, you're going to get a lot of single high coverage, press man coverage, and when it is time to throw deep, how often are his guys wide open?
Yeah,
nothing against Brock, but like that. That's why someone of his skill set can have a complete game, because defenses are overcommitting to take away the short stuff and leaving themselves vulnerable to the long stuff. And he's not Jimmy Garoppolo. He can hit it. I mean, his deep throws are kind of low, and you wouldn't want him to try to test double coverage or try to thread the needle like that. But he can see it when it's open. He can see the whole field. He consistently finds these open guys and hits them. And like, man, he's really good.
There's a statistic came out yesterday. So, people think this is a hate on Brock Purdy. It's not, but Brock Purdy completed 10 of 12 passes for 165 yards and 3 touchdowns when targeting open receivers yesterday with 3 yards of separation. Purdy became the first quarterback to throw multiple touchdowns to receivers with 10-plus yards of target separation, the first time since 2021 with Dak Prescott. So the reality is Brock Purdy is executing at a very high level. So is Kyle Shanahan. So is this entire offense. It's all a perfect marriage, and that's what gives me confidence about this team and this offense going into the postseason.
Yeah, the way the Niners are built with, really no money set aside for the quarterback position and not a lot of money invested in the offensive line, Brock is perfect. He's the best quarterback they can get at that price point. He operates the system perfectly. He can protect himself behind this offensive line. As long as Kyle Shanahan isn't trying to block premium edge rushers with backup tight ends, he's good.
Yeah.
So, he's the best quarterback. It's like they're better off with Purdy than Patrick Mahomes. Because if they had Patrick Mahomes, they'd have to get rid of 5 players. You understand?
At that price point, they're better off.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that's the reality of the NFL. There's no Now, if there were no salary cap and there were no rookie wage scale, and he was getting paid whatever the market dictated, and the Niners called up Kansas City and said, hey, let's swap, they'd say, no, we like Patrick. Thanks a lot. Have fun with Brock.
Who's a better process? Who's as good or better processing and seeing the field than Purdy? I would say Mahomes and Burrow. And I'm trying to think of another one. I think if you're looking for processing, seeing the field, understanding the offense, calm demeanor, Mahomes and Burrow, Purdy, probably your top 3 in that regard. I don't know if I can think of another one. Who else would process as well as Brock Purdy outside of those 2, in your opinion? I got Burrow,
processes as well.
Mahomes, Purdy.
I mean, Tua is doing a pretty good job with that in his version of the Shanahan offense. I don't know, man. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard to judge. It's hard to judge process, and that's why everyone missed on Brock Purdy coming out of the draft. Like 32 teams passed on Brock Purdy 7 times. Niners passed on him 6 times before they drafted him. So it's very hard. How do you judge processing? It's hard to judge that. And I think that's why so many people missed on him.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny, like there's that S2 cognition test, right? It's like they're trying to get it. But I think this, to me, processing is something that you can probably scout and see if the guy played 4 years in college. And I think that's what we're starting to see. Reps matter, experience matters. And if you want to be a guy who can make the most of his opportunity when you get it, you have to have played a lot of football. And Brock did. Like Jake Browning, he's having some success right now. 4-year starter at Washington. Like Bailey Zappi just took Mac Jones' job. Well, Mac Jones started for a year and a half, and Bailey Zappi started like 5 years in college. I think we're seeing, unless you're freaking a true game changer with a hell of a coach, man, there are better quarterbacks than you. Like you're getting drafted in the first round based on potential that you can't fulfill because it's not a developmental league, and there's better quarterbacks getting taken later in the draft. I think that's what we're starting to see. It's not a developmental league. You can get paid to play quarterback in college, stay in school.
I mean, that's what I liked about Stroud coming out. I had Stroud as the number 1 quarterback coming out of the draft, and that's what I liked about him. The way he could just process, just natural, calm demeanor, makes every throw, and that's why he's so successful. That's the main attribute for, who was it? Jesse Sapola, 49ers legend. He tweeted out, like, the main thing you're looking for in a quarterback, and he's basing this on what his experience with 49er greats is, can you just stand there, process, make the throws with the heat in your face?
Well, but think about it, though. It's the main thing if you got Bill Walsh. It's the main thing if you got Kyle Shanahan, right? And because it does matter the context. And Cam doesn't understand this because he didn't have this in his, bless his heart. He played for freaking Carolina.
Right.
And it wasn't as simple as, hey, sit back in the pocket and process. No. His weapons weren't that good. His scheme wasn't that good. He had to make plays. He had to play like a hero, and he did. Brock doesn't have to. A couple times a game. Every quarterback has to a couple times a game. But essentially, someone's open every play because the players are all that good and Kyle's that good. And he just has to find the guy. And you know what? Gosh darn it, he does.
He's really good at it. He's really good
at it. Really, really freaking good at it. But if you put him on some bad team and said, now go show us that you're elite,
It would be harder because guys are
It'd
not
be
quite as
harder.
open. Guys are not quite as
And only
open.
some quarterbacks can even try to pull that off. And
Yeah.
Cam, he did it 1 year. He did it
Yeah.
1 year, essentially.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, those guys have to put the team on their back. They have to just carry the whole entire team. It'd be interesting to see how those guys responded on a team like the 49ers. But what I know is that this is just seems like the perfect marriage. The price, the processing, the offense, the play caller, the weapons. That's why I'm so confident in this team.
Isn't this a much more realistic way to build a team? Instead of saying, try somehow, some way to get a super duper quarterback and have him just cover up all kind of problems. But just, it's like, how do you get that guy to begin with? And then you get him and you give him all this money and your team isn't that good. Or, so you know what? We're not going to wait around for that superhero quarterback. We're going to build up the rest of the team and just get a guy who can process. And you know what? College is producing those guys left and right.
Accuracy and processing. Accuracy and processing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you process?
You can see it. Yeah. If a guy started 4 years, you can see it. Does he have the accuracy? Does he have the processing? It's on tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to really watch the film. You got to watch the film. It's going to be interesting to see how the drafts, how they look like moving forward when it comes to these quarterbacks. Like, are they, I mean, damn, like the Panthers really messed this one up. You know, I mean, I'm curious to
compare Bryce Young to Brock Purdy's arc. Okay, Bryce Young's at Alabama playing for the best team in college football. Then he has to go to the worst team in the NFL. That's a recipe for success. I mean, for failure. Yeah. Then you take Brock Purdy at Iowa State. It's a middling college football team. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then he goes to the Niners. All of a sudden, the game just got easier.
Yeah.
People are more open. His supporting cast is better. His advantage over the opposition is greater. Like, that's what you can create for some of these quarterbacks coming out of college. Like, hey, the game just got easier for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because your players are better. Your teammates are better. Like, that didn't happen to Bryce Young.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%, man. I'm curious what's going to happen in this coming draft in regards to quarterbacks and how, if you know, it really seems like the Brock Purdy effect.
The Brock Purdy effect.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be fewer teams trading up, reaching for quarterbacks in the top 15. You know why? Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett,
Zach Wilson,
Mac Jones,
Trey Lance.
Like, yeah, all that. Zach Wilson, it's just a disaster. And it's like, those are unnecessary risks to take. Teams used to justify, like, well, you know, you got to take a shot. You got to have a quarterback. It's like, yeah, and look at all these guys who are good right away, taken late. Like, adjust what you're looking for.
And, you know, shout out to D'Amico. He was able to nail it when a lot of teams aren't able to, right? Like, I think he nailed it with the second draft pick last year when it comes to Stroud, but it doesn't happen very often lately, at least. So, yeah. Also,
the Brock Purdy effect, teams getting rid of their overpriced mediocre quarterbacks. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, the market for the overpriced mediocre quarterback is gone. Goodbye. Game managers are a dime a dozen, and they're cheap.
Jimmy.
And you can find them every day. Sorry, Jimmy. Sorry, Gino. The Jimmy Gino tier of quarterback is gone. Yeah. Why? Because to me, it's the same principle as like paying Mike McGlinchey $17 million a year. Why are you doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's a right tackle? Like, Colt McKivitz is just as good.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I still would have liked them to. They need to approach that right tackle the way you're talking about approaching with Brock Purdy. They need to just. It would have been nice if they got DeJuan Jones over one of these tight ends that we haven't even seen touch the field this year. So it's not like it's okay to neglect that right tackle spot. It would have been better if they had approached it in the draft like everyone wanted them to. But with a quarterback like Brock Purdy, you can kind of camouflage that and get away with it.
Just got a text from Jesse Naylor, friend of the show.
Tell him
he's making some good points. I saw your topic with Ryan. If Nick Mullins is a backup and can play like a low-level starter, and Jimmy Garoppolo is a low-level starter / fringe backup and can play like he's a top 12 quarterback, then does it stand to reason that if Brock Purdy is even top 20, he can play like an MVP on this team in this system with these weapons? It's an interesting point, right? Like, when Jimmy was here, we had how many spreadsheets told us that Jimmy Garoppolo objectively, by every measure of advanced statistic, was a top 10 quarterback? He wasn't. We see that now. He's not even a top 30 quarterback, but he looked like a top 10 quarterback on this team in this system with these weapons. So just a quarterback necessarily winning the MVP, like Matt Ryan won the MVP in this system, not with these weapons, but with this coach, had one of the greatest seasons ever as a quarterback, not a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah. Not really elite. I mean, yes, Brock Purdy is being. Here's the thing. I never thought Jimmy Garoppolo was a top 10 quarterback. I didn't care what the statistics said. I mean, that's me. I always had him top 25. I thought him between 20 and 25. That's how I always saw Jimmy, even when at his peak. I always saw him that way because he was a first read quarterback. He was a statue in the pocket. I never thought Jimmy was that guy. So, yes, this team and this offense and these weapons are elevating Brock Purdy, but also Brock Purdy's really good. Like, I don't think Brock Purdy is he's nowhere near Jimmy Garoppolo's level. I still think Brock Purdy is top. He's top 10, top 12.
It's also really hard to critique any quarterback making $900K. Once he starts making $35 million a year, the gloves will come off. But right now, it's like, how can you be mad? It's a free quarterback. And he's really good.
I think he has. I honestly think he has easily top 5 processing. And so to me, that's what matters.
Like the Niners traded 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance, got nothing, and then Brock Purdy was like, "Hey, I'll play the position for free at an MVP level." And I was like, "Thanks, that's exactly what we need because we have no money left over for this position and no draft capital. But if you just want to be Harry freaking Potter." Who is he? He's like King David, right? I mean, he is that story. He's just the unassuming King Arthur. He's just the unassuming kid who happens to be the king of the kingdom. So salute Brock Purdy.